Well, folks, Andres the writer here, and today I'll be answering the question, how do I plot my story? So we'll be looking at plot, the three-act structure, and we'll be writing a story from scratch. And if you want to do the same, I will leave a worksheet in the description below, which you can download and follow along. Or if you're watching this on your phone, you can do that later at your leisure. And stick around until the very end for a special little bonus for you die-hard writers out there. But first, let's cue that intro that we all know and love.
Andres, the writer, follow along with him on YouTube.
So Andres the writer here, and my goal is simply to help make you the best writer you can be and to get your writing out into the world. And if you need to write a story for the SSAT, for example, this will help you very much so. So first of all, in order to answer how to plot a novel, you have to understand what plot is. Plot, very simply put, is just the main events of your story. That's it. And structure is the container for those events. So you have the 5-act structure, 3-act structure, the hero's journey. There's others, and they're all good. But for our sake, we're going to be using the 3-act structure just because it's the simplest. And because if you watch Netflix, if you watch movies, if you watch TV, you've seen this structure 1,000 million times. So you're already accustomed to it. In fact, I'll link a great video here that talks about how to write using the 3-act structure. For our intents and purposes, the 3-act structure really is just beginning, middle, and end. That's it. And I think that was first postulated by Aristotle, who said a story has to have a beginning, middle, and end. I could be wrong. You should look it up and tell me in the comments below if I'm right or wrong. And we're choosing the 3-act structure as opposed to something else because it's simple. And you know, just like if you're an architect and you're designing a house, you want somebody to buy that house, you need to make a house with a front, sides, and a back. And sure, you could make a house without, say, a back, but that would be a pretty weird house that you just made, and nobody's gonna buy it. And you'll get fired and lose your job. So the same thing goes for story writing. Can we write different structured stories? Do we even have to have plot? The answer, of course, is no. You don't need plot. You don't have to have a firm structure. But in my experience, it's much better to have that structure, at least to begin with. Though if you're curious about knowing more, stay with me until the very end. And now let's get straight to it. And by the way, if you could take a second and just like and subscribe, that would be great. And leave a comment below as to whether you like the 3-act structure, whether you think it's necessary, or if you think it stifles writing. So if you are at a desktop, you can go ahead and download the PDF that I'll link in the description below to follow along. If you're on your mobile, don't worry, I will pull it up on my screen. Somehow, like so. See, that's what it looks like. Okay, so step 1, we are going to go ahead and set a timer for 30 minutes. I've already queued that up here. Now, you're gonna wanna try to do it in exactly 30 minutes. Honestly, I'm probably gonna go a little bit over because I'm trying to talk this through as I do it. Now, step 2, we are going to choose a prompt. I gave you 4 prompts there. You can go ahead and use one of those. Otherwise, you can choose one from online. And just to prove that I'm doing this on the fly, you can see that I clicked on some of these. I'm going to click on one that I haven't. The door busted open and in walked. Step 2, we've chosen our prompt. Okay, step 3. So if we return to our worksheet here, we see that the next step is to brainstorm. Now, the key to brainstorming ideas is that you cannot censor yourself. This is the biggest mistake that people make. And when I was in marketing right out of college, we were brainstorming candy ideas because one of our clients was Wonka candies, Willy Wonka candies. So we were designing some crazy candy, like candy that comes in a cone and fireworks come out and it turns into ice in your mouth. And during this session that I was way too young to be in, Basically, some guy came up with this crazy candy, and I was like, no, that's impossible. And he looked at me and he said, this is brainstorming. So it's really important that you remember that this is really just coming off the top of your head. Don't censor yourself. Just come up with whatever crappy ideas you can. The other thing to keep in mind is we are writing a 30-minute short story. So the ideas that you come up with based on your prompt can't be too big. You can't think of World War III, for example, and neither should they be too small, like falling off of your seat. Of course, you can build amazing stories out of each, but for our intents and purposes and for trying to keep this simple, we're going to try to pick a medium-sized idea. Okay, so as you can tell here, I'm starting to change the prompt a little bit, which is fine. In fact, maybe that's good. Also, FYI, these are two independent clauses connected with a coordinating conjunction, so I put a comma after the first independent clause. Hey! I'll talk about that more some other time. All right. Ooh, I went over. Okay, so as you can see, I started to get a little wild, but it doesn't matter because, in fact, that's the point. We're trying to brainstorm here and just come up with as many zany ideas as we can. Quick interruption, folks. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe and hit that little bell that pops up, and that'll give you notifications for when I drop new videos. And if after watching this whole video all the way to the end, you didn't like it, you can go ahead and hit, didn't like, the thumbs down. But still, do me a favor and let me know why so that I can make these videos better. And, my goal is that each video is better than the last, even though I'm running into some technical difficulties as I try to do this. Moving on. Step 4, we are going to choose our best idea from the ones that we just created, and then we're going to restate the idea as a problem. So we'll get to that in a second. So I wrote a bunch of ideas here. There was one that I particularly liked. Some of them are too big, I can already tell. Some of them are dumb. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. Now notice that I changed the prompt a little bit. That's great. The prompt is just meant to get you started. I don't know where this is going to go. I have no idea. And I do have a sister. So this is not about you, sister. Okay? I just brainstormed this. That's all. So I chose my best idea. Now, I have to turn that into a problem. So it's a little bit easier with other examples, but since I'm coming up with this on the fly, I'm going to have to show you how to do it with this. Okay, yeah, that one's just not going to work. So I'm going to choose another one. So I'm realizing what the issue is. So the issue is that the subject of this prompt is the door. That's tough to turn into a problem. So I'm going to make the subject me. Okay, so I've changed the prompt. I've now made myself the subject, though it's the narrator. It's not actually me. And next, I want to turn this into a problem. A man is looking for his lost dog. Okay. But he can't find it. All right, now, so you'll notice a few things that I did. First of all, this is going to come into play later, but I needed someone with a want. So the problem with that prompt I chose, the door busted open, it didn't give me a want. So let me just make it clear now. As you're brainstorming, have it be a character who wants something. So in this case, the man wants to find his dog. All right, now if you'll notice, my timer is way over, but it's not fair. And the next step is plot your story. So for our beginning, we need some kind of triggering event. The triggering event is just what gets that story in motion, what gets things moving. So for example, in my story with with this dog. The triggering event is the guy losing his dog. It's kind of obvious. The beginning with that triggering event would be the man loses dog. Now, in the middle, your character has to hit some obstacle. So your character is pursuing a goal, has a want, and at this point, something happens where he or she can't hit that goal. Man tries to find dog, but does not. Obstacle. And lastly, the end is our resolution. And this should be fairly obvious, but this is where either your character overcomes the obstacle or doesn't. So if the character overcomes the obstacle, then you wrote a happy ending. If not, if the character does not overcome the obstacle, then you probably wrote a tragedy. I have a tendency towards tragedies, but we'll see what happens in mine. And I know what's going to happen in mine. He doesn't find the dog. Oh, yeah. Which, funny story, by the way, reminds me of something my brother said. I tend to like challenging myself. And so he said, why don't you write a story with a happy ending? And that can be your challenge. I don't know. They just come out tragedies. Next, we have our beginning, middle, and end. What step am I on? We basically just plotted our short story. And yes, it is that simple. It's just little points that you're going to come back to, and then you know where your story is going. Okay, step 6, describe your setting and characters. Now, the important thing here isn't to pick the most amazing setting. The point is just that you have to pick a setting. A lot of amateur writers, they never solidify the setting. They think that their work is so great that, it should be timeless and placeless. But the truth is that strong writing is very detailed and specific. So we need to pick a place. That's the important part. Doesn't matter where. Just choose one. So for me, I don't know. I've got Brooklyn on my mind, so I'll pick Brooklyn. Oh dear. This is silly. I'm going to choose a season also. And I'm going to choose a time of day. I'm seeing evening. Twilight, I feel like I can't use it because of the freaking movies. Okay, next, we want to describe our characters. So you're going to have a main character, and ideally you'll have a secondary character also. Unfortunately, because of the example I chose, this was not intended, but this is, when you do things live, this is what happens. My secondary character is a dog. Honestly, I don't even really like dogs that much, but okay. My main character, I'll write from the first. No, I won't write from the first person. Okay, now here's a pro tip for you. Base your characters off of people in your lives. Change their names, and if you're worried about them knowing who it is that you're writing about, you can take the appearance of one person and combine it with the personality of another person. You can take different characteristics of different people and blend them together, and then you've created this kind of Frankenstein where no one will be able to know that you're actually writing about them. Or maybe you want them to know, but probably not. I'm going to give them a name. I don't know. Jerry just came to mind. And Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald. So while we don't want to worry about writing amazing writing at the moment, we do want to worry about details and being specific. So when you're describing your main character, try not to just do something like a man with a beard, he is short and smokes. Instead, we want to get much more descriptive. So let's see what we can come up with. Okay, so another pro tip here. As a human, you have 5 senses: touch, taste, hearing. I know there are more. Smell. And I'm forgetting one of them. Taste, smell, hearing, sight, and touch. And a lot of amateur writers, first of all, some of them don't even know that they have any senses at all, and just write from a place of ideas. And this is fine if you're writing essays or you're writing nonfiction. But as soon as you start entering the land of fiction and you're trying to light up your reader's imagination, you have to start to use your senses. And a lot of amateur novel writers, for example, only use their sight and forget about the other four senses. So we try to include as many senses as possible. Next, I have my main character, and now I need my secondary character. And my secondary character in this case is that dog. And I'm going to give him a strange name. Go lightly. All right, so we've got our plot, we've got our characters, we've got a setting. That's a lot. Just remember that as you describe your setting and characters, use all of your senses. People, humans, they have eyes, they have hair, they have skin, they have mannerisms, they have breasts or not, they have height, they have toes, they have idiosyncrasies and mannerisms. So use those to create a unique character. Just like there's only one version of you and me, there should only be one version of your character. The more specific you make that character and setting, the more interesting it will be to read. And by the way, I've taught a lot of writing classes at this point, and not every woman is blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Break the stereotypes, folks. Write about different people. Okay, now, finally, the step you have been waiting for, you and I both. This is where you actually get to write. You take what you just plotted, you take your character, you take your setting, and now we're going to bring this thing to life. What you need to do is get your characters from the beginning to the middle and to the end. That's it. I'm going to give you 15 minutes, so I'm going to begin that now. I'm going to make up a title real quick, and now I'm going to start writing. Just checking the time, halfway. I'm about halfway through the story, so that's good. I'm taking some grammatical license here. So I have two choices now. I can either finish this in 2 minutes and just race this to the end, or I can keep going. And because this is an exercise and the whole point is to write a story and maybe a decent story, I'm going to go ahead and just keep going for a little bit longer. Well, folks, that's the timer. I'm going to go ahead and give this maybe another 5 minutes, which, by the way, is still not bad. I mean, 35 minutes start to end. Come on, that's pretty good. Let's see if I can get there. All right, not bad. So, if you're curious to see that unedited, straight from the top of the dome story, I will post a link to that. Maybe I'll just post a link to the Google Doc. I have no idea if that's going to work with Google Docs. And I'll tell you real quick what the word count was. So 700 words in 30 minutes, but that includes outlining, plotting, coming up with a character, coming up with a setting, choosing a prompt, making it a problem. So that's not bad. And actually, it was 700. So actually, it was 700 words in 20 minutes. I could do better, but it's a start. By the way, if you're a teacher, you are welcome to use this with your class. All I ask is that you please leave my two little, website references at the bottom. But everything else you can change to suit your needs. So lastly, we need to go back, step 8, and proofread our work. This step is super important. We need to look for any typos, we need to look for punctuation mistakes, grammar mistakes. And if you edit your work now and come across grammar questions you don't know the answers to, please go ahead and leave me a comment. You can leave your questions there, and I will do my best to answer them. Likewise, if you still haven't liked or subscribed, please go ahead and do that. Click on that little bell, and that'll let you know when I drop another video, especially if you have a request. I would be happy to take it. Oh, and by the way, a few of you have asked, what is that beautiful pen that you use? That would be this one. This is a Lamy. I'll leave a link below. So let's go ahead and proofread, shall we? I'll just give you an example. I won't go through all of this now. We worked at a warehouse unloading boxes from trucks, loading some boxes from trucks, loading others. So I know we were taught in high school not to start sentences with coordinating conjunctions. I'll go into this in more detail in another video, but coordinating conjunctions, you can remember them using the mnemonic fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So typically we don't start a sentence with and, for example, but I like the effect that it would have here. I think it draws more attention to this sentence. Now here also, he had ragged clothes and he smelled of mothballs. These are two sentences that I am conjoining. I should put a comma after the first, like so, and then there's another sentence like so, but I'm breaking this rule on purpose. I like that it flows quicker without them. So notice I'm just cleaning it up. I'm not actually doing a revision yet. I'll do that later. But for those of you who are doing an essay or a short story for the SSAT or trying to get something out quickly, you have to take this moment, those 2 minutes to proofread. So anyway, so here I would probably come back and fix this up a little bit more, tighten it up. But I will do that later. So you've made it through the video. Hopefully you have a rough draft of your own story as well. And here's that special little bonus. learn the 3-act structure. Learn it well. I've come across so many writers who proclaim to hate it, who say they think it's dumb, they think they're over plot, it's overused. And what I've found is that while that may be true, that there is too much focus on plot in, say, Hollywood movies, at the same time, these writers, if you ask them to write a story from beginning to end, they can't really do it. They certainly can't do it while they pull their reader along. And so that's where this helps. That 3-act structure that we're accustomed to, it gives us something to sink our teeth into as readers. And that's why we use it. Then once you have that structure, you can do so much within it. You can create an infinite number of books and stories within that structure. But I highly recommend that you learn it well. Do 100 of these worksheets, just print them out, do one a day for 100 days, and you will be a better writer, I promise, and I guarantee it. In the next videos, we'll be taking this story and revising it, and then we'll be sending it out for publication. So I'll be going from start to finish. And if you would like personal writing or editing help, I'll leave a link below. You can check out my website. And again, please like and subscribe. It keeps me going. Click on that little bell so you know when I'm dropping another video. And if you didn't like the video, please leave a comment telling me why. Telling me what's up. What could I do to make it better? That would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, and see you soon.